Hello watch enthusiasts. Now this year we've really been spoilt for choice with regards to the top 5 pieces at auction this year, and in this video I'd like to talk about things that already have been auctioned and will be auctioned this year, and watches which I feel are the most important in terms of sales this year. And I wouldn't normally make a video of this nature because usually I would wait until the auction of the watch, or simply mention these watches during my monthly update on watch news. But I do feel that in this case some of these watches are so rare and so important that really it was worth producing a video specifically for them themselves. So in this video I'd like to talk about the top 5 watches at auction this year, and of course I talk about ones which already have been sold and ones which will be sold. But I hope you find the video interesting with regards to the history of these watches and details of them. Now the first watch I'd like to talk about is a very bizarre white gold Rolex Submariner from the 1970s. And this watch predates any previous gold Submariner. But the interesting facts about this watch are the features it has, from that strange bezel through to the nipple dial and that bizarre bracelet. Now starting with the dial of this watch, we have a sunburst dial with a nipple style of design, so one has a very thick surround, a metal, in this case 18 karat gold surrounds to the indices, which adds a certain luster to the watch but reduces the lume plots, and which creates the aesthetic of nipple. There's really no other way of putting this. But it still features the Rolex Submariner Mercedes hands and the Dayton Cyclops on the dial, as well as this sunburst blue dial. Additionally, the bezel is this very strange design, which was I imagine designed to be more luxurious. And this watch was, and I must point this out, the prototype, because only 3 of these watches were made, 2 with blue dials and 1 with a black dial, which again adds to the rarity of this model. And the bezel features 2 grips on opposing sides of the watch with an engraved bezel insert rather than the standard aluminium one of the time. Also, the rim of the bezel is thicker, making for a slimmer insert and really a way of putting more white gold on the bezel, if you will, and adding more space for extra craftsmanship. Another oddity of this watch is the bracelet. And this watch features a bracelet which is closer to a President bracelet than an oyster one, with a type of centre link which isn't polished or brushed as it would be on the modern version, but rather in this case is finished like bark, which is again a very, very strange choice for this watch, and certainly does make this watch a truly bizarre oddity of the history of Rolex, where the Submariner steps away from its tool aesthetic and towards a far more luxurious aspect of its own design. Now the final price this watch sold for at Christie's in Geneva was 631,500 Swiss francs, making it the most expensive Rolex Submariner ever sold, due to its rarity and the fact that it is a truly bizarre model which is very different to anything else ever sold. Now the next watch I'd like to talk about is a Patek Philippe reference 5208P, and this is a watch which features a minute repeater, a monopusher chronograph, an instantaneous perpetual calendar and a moon phase, housed in its platinum case with slotted lugs, with these openings in the lugs, which make the case look altogether slimmer than its rather large size. But the truly interesting feature about this watch, which is coming up for auction in mid-July in Monaco, is that it was owned and bought in London by Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia. And of course, considering he's been in the news rather extensively recently, for various reasons, I suspect the price of this watch when sold will be extremely high. Now I say this because even in its most simple form, without any of the fame surrounding this particular piece, this platinum case watch, with a great deal of complications, is only available to upon inquiry by the top customers of the brand for 980,000 Swiss francs. So already it's an unbelievably expensive piece with a great deal of value and complication going into it. But with the added interest and fame of its ownership, this watch certainly will fetch an unbelievable price, I suspect, at auction. Similarly, the finishing of the watch itself is exemplary, but of course for this price one could expect it from Patek Philippe, with inset dials, many levels on the dial. Again, the complication of the movement with its micro rotor and fully decorated case back is wonderful to see. And considering that even a watch without this fame would sell for more than its sale price due to the fact that they're very difficult to come by and have a very, very long waiting list, as a result, I really do, and I reiterate this, I really do suspect this will be one of the most interesting sales and auctions of the year. Now the next watch I'd like to talk about is a watch which recently sold for $2.9 million, and this is a Patek Philippe reference 2497, which is an 18 karat gold model from the 1950s, which in this case from 1954, with a perpetual calendar, and is completely unrestored in this case, in perfectly original condition, with a completely original dial, which is again a real wonder to see in remarkably good condition, with remaining indices, and also the hands are original too, as you can see from the loom that's fallen out. However, it's the history of this watch that has raised its price so much. This watch was effectively given to Haile Selassie, the emperor of Abyssinia, and then Ethiopia as the name changed, in the 1954, or rather during his 1954 visit to Geneva in November, due to his visit and a conference there. So as a result, there is real history to this watch, and of course Haile Selassie was a very interesting character in that he was involved in some of the most disputed problems, really, with his country, notably the 1935 Abyssinian crisis, whereby the Italian forces of Mussolini invaded Abyssinia following a border dispute, which was, of course, the scene of many problems with regards to the League of Nations, notably the events that unfolded with regards to the actions of Britain and France in the Hall of Alpact, for instance, where Britain and France really didn't help Ethiopia or Abyssinia, as it was known then, in the way that one would expect, and so as a result rather put shame on themselves. But this watch was very much a watch which is associated with a character who was a real, at the very core of these very famous events, which have become extremely well known and very, very historically important. So as a result, this watch, in terms of historical value and story, really is wonderful. So as a result, the price for this watch was extremely high at, as I've said, $2.9 million for this 18-karat gold Patek Philippe. Now, as a standalone watch, this model is still fascinating in that it really is a watch of that era, and it really is the epitome of what Patek Philippe do best, which are watches which look deceptively simple, yet feature a very impressive movement, and in this case a perpetual calendar with a moon phase as well, which is all put into this very simple dial, which I must say I think looks wonderful on its completely unrestored case, which is still in extremely good condition despite the fact that it's been worn quite extensively by its owner, which all adds further to the value and importance of this particular timepiece, which did, as I said, sell for just shy of $3 million. Now, if, however, there's one leader's watch which has to be talked about as a result of its sale at auction this year, it has to be the Rolex Bow Tie. And this watch is a watch owned by the last Emperor of Vietnam, and it's a fairly modest-sized watch at 36mm in yellow gold. Of course, it's by no means an expensive watch even in its day, because the brief that this emperor gave when he ordered the watch was that he requested the rarest and most precious Rolex ever made. And he ordered this watch effectively while signing the Geneva Accord in 1954, in spring 1954, after his abdication from power, as a result of being convinced to do so by Ho Chi Minh, the famous leader and very famous character in North Vietnam, under the communist view of politics, which was of course extremely influential throughout the Vietnam War. But this watch is very much a watch predating that era, and this watch was bought just a few hundred metres from the hotel where the emperor was staying, where of course he went in to order this watch and gave that very briefing of wanting the rarest and most precious Rolex ever made. And this watch certainly doesn't disappoint. This is the reference 6062 in yellow gold, which is a triple calendar moon phase with a diamond and black finished dial. And this watch really is the epitome of the complicated Rolex. Now, very, very few Rolexes have a triple calendar and a moon phase, as the vast majority of Rolexes over the years have become far closer to a standard three-hand in most cases, other than the Daytona, for instance, or some of their Cellini models. But in this case, one really does have a complicated watch, which has complications which, again, are rare for Rolex, as I've said. And again, one has the addition of diamonds on the dial in those 5 positions, and also the black dial is again in particularly good condition, as you can see from the photographs. It really is an exceptional condition considering its age and the fact that it was in fact worn. But nonetheless, I do think that despite its small damages to the case as a result of daily wear and general use, this watch certainly didn't disappoint at auction with its sale of $5 million, making it the most valuable Rolex ever sold, which certainly is quite a testament to the history and value of history when it comes to vintage watches. Of course, the value of such a piece is always augmented by the fact that these watches are furnished with a history which is very comprehensive in this case, as we have the details of how he went about buying it, which is more than can be said for the vast majority of watches on the vintage market, where actually the history can be quite hazy at times. So really, the fact that we have such knowledge of this watch really has helped it in becoming such a valuable timepiece. Now, the final watch on this list is a Paul Newman Rolex Daytona with the exotic dial. And as a rule, the most valuable Rolex Daytonas have the screw-down pushers, because they're far more rare than the earlier pump pusher models. However, I feel this watch might be the exception, because they've finally located the actual watch owned by Paul Newman, which has coined this entire term and segment of the market due to the popularity raised by his ownership of this particular watch. And this watch is coming up for auction at Philips later on in the year. And this is the 6239 model, and it was given to Paul Newman in 1972, before he started his racing career by his wife, and hence it has "Drive Carefully" engraved on the caseback, which is again a peculiarity of this particular watch, and due to the fact that this watch has featured in so many press publications, and also in a great deal of Rolex adverts, I do feel that this could well be, or at least what we're looking at here, could well be the most valuable watch ever sold. And I suspect it will break the record of the Patek Philippe sold in November last year, which sold for just around the 11 million mark. Of course, as far as iconic Rolexes go, this really is the bee's knees, or so to speak, because it has started a trend, if you will, of spending incredible amounts of money on this particular type of Rolex Daytona, the early Daytonas. And I must say, it's probably one of the most influential watches, which has had so many homages made to it by so many companies. Also, this is one of those watches which features up there with probably about 90% of all watch collectors in their sort of grail selection, and really to find the watch owned by the person who coined the term, or rather this market segment themselves, really is asking too much, really, for most collectors. So, for those reasons purely, I do feel this watch will break the record in later this year at Philips, with regards to the most expensive watch ever sold. Now, of course, otherwise this is a simple steel watch with a Rolex Oyster case and the simple characteristics of a Daytona, the tricompax style of chronograph with the two pushers and the tachymeter bezel. But I feel it's its place in the hearts and minds of so many collectors that will really see this watch through to what I think will be an incredible price for such a timepiece. Anyway, I'll finish this video here, but please do leave your comments down below as to what you think of the various watches for sale, and how you think they'll do under the hammer when they eventually do come to it. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and do please like, share and subscribe if you did enjoy the video and would like to see more content on the channel in future. So thank you very much for watching. This is Arm on the Watch Guy, over and out.